How you doing, Rick? And Jim? And Emily? Oh, that's you. Okay.
I figured that way I could see what was on and any comments.
Which green button?
Oh, did you,
So to turn your camera on, what you need to do is in the bottom left-hand corner, there's a little video camera box, like it's next to your unmute. There's a click the button for the camera. Is he on an iPad?
okay. Did you
Yeah, I'm sure he
Griffin?
is.
Did you send Griffin?
Yes, I did.
Okay, he's not on yet, so. Griffin.
It may be on the top of your screen, Jim. I'm not sure it's on the
Yeah,
bottom.
I don't use iPad.
Should be a little camera.
All right, hold on.
Got it? What, did you get the information she sent you?
By email at 6:28.
Email.
There he is.
All right.
Yes?
Hey, Jim.
All right,
All right. You got me?
Yeah, today.
man,
Got-
first the golf
Okay,
course.
Yeah.
go ahead and get started then. We'll
All right.
get on you. Okay, Griffin is trying to get on here, so give him 1 minute, and if not, then we'll just go ahead and get started.
There's no temperature. Yeah. This office doesn't have a temperature that's set. It's set
Do what it's gonna do.
Uh-oh, there's Helen. What's Helen can't get it?
Helen's on.
Hello? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, now you clicked on participant and can't get a picture.
Can you close participants?
Close participant. Okay, whatever you click it again.
Well, let's go close the meeting and come back in.
She's not gonna do that now. Okay, what happened? What now? Say that again?
There he is.
All right, I see Rick.
I'm here.
Go ahead and click that and see what happened. Oh, no. If you click the right, you're gonna go all the way out and you cannot get back in. Can you hear? Well, if you can hear, I don't think you better click anything because you won't get back. All right, then. All right. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye. Always put it on before I leave. Well, it is now 6:30 and welcome everybody. Good evening and welcome to our book study, The Color of Compromise. And we're coming close to the end. Therefore, we got to decide what kind of book we're going to use for the next time. Okay, it is here we get to know our neighbors across cultural lines. And also, we're trying to make sure that we work on reconciliation, not only for us, but for everybody. We come to get to know each other. And therefore, if you know some other people, please call them and tell them to join with us. All right. Now, when somebody else is speaking, let them speak, listen to them. And then after then you can raise your hand or you can do the talking. And of course, Emily is here and she will recognize who you are. Okay. Next meeting, June 20th. Everybody got to come to Columbia, South Carolina because we're meeting at Reformation Lutheran Church. All right. And Jim is there and I'll be there and Julie will be there. So we want you to come and join with us. And Helen will be there too. She can hear us, but we can't see her. All right. Then we go to July the 11th. That's Emily and Griffin and who else? You know, anybody else? Okay, those two. All right. Then our last session would be,
I got it.
our last session will be July 25th. That will be held at Ascension Church, and Jackie will then be in charge of that. August, it appears that we will be on break unless the group decide that they're going to do something else. In September, we will be planning what we're going to be doing along with going to Orangeburg. Rick,
Yeah. Hopefully we'll be watching the movie Four Little Girls, the documentary by Spike Lee.
do you have that yet?
I'm not sure of the date yet.
Okay, so we're going to leave our book date flexible one of those days in September for us to go to Orangeburg. That's Orlando. All right, and then of course, in February, and we need y'all to work with us on that. We're talking about engaging ourselves with U.S. history, the African American, the U.S. history. That's one.
Yeah,
Tell us about that U.S. history.
that's the wall.
The wall.
Remember the.
Oh, yes. The USC has a civil rights center, University of South Carolina, and one of their professors has a walking tour of Columbia that he's developed, talking about the history of civil rights right here.
Okay, and then of course we'll get some more information on the African American Museum. So that will be coming in February, and that would be right in keeping with Black History Month.
Right.
Okay, I'm Leroy Cannon, and our
Julia
leader
Prater.
for tonight, Julia. Okay,
I continue to be Pastor Emily Hartman.
And I am Jackie Utley.
up there, Rick.
Oh, yeah? Rick Mason?
And Jim.
And Jim Prater.
Who's that?
That's
Bruce
Laverne.
Kreutzer.
Devon.
Recognize you.
Leroy, we talked about going to the African American Museum on October 7th.
October 7th. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I got a printout that you sent me saying it.
Okay.
Senate trip to African American Museum, Charleston, proposed date, Saturday, October 7th at 11 a.m. Okay.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
that's a football Saturday.
Is that
It's
right?
the fall. What do you want us to do?
Oh, my God. Uh-oh.
Not a Saturday.
I know we used to, couldn't even have tag sales, yard sales.
Say
Don't
the
go
7th. Say the 7th.
October 7th.
October 7th.
Oh,
All right. Okay. And let's see, we have Reverend, that's Helen Cannon. Emily.
Hey, Ellen.
No,
She's on
that's still
mute.
me.
That's still
Right.
Emily. Okay, we got.
I'm just signed in here and there. Hi.
Dr.
And we have Bruce.
Me.
Bruce is
Yeah, where's Bruce?
He's there. He's
I'm
just
here.
All right, he's there. Hello, Bruce. Glad to see you. Mio is here.
Mio is here. Hi,
All right.
Mio.
Hello.
Miho's here.
Mio.
Oh, okay. And Olanda McCauley.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I am.
Yay.
Hey, all right. We're glad to have you.
Oh,
Glad to have you. Okay. All right, we're ready. You doing the prayer? You got to put
they see
somebody
us?
else.
Can we be seen?
They can see us.
I don't see me.
Here,
Okay,
you're right there.
there I am.
Yes.
Rick said, look at it, want to be seen.
Don't worry, your hair's on.
You bet, and I need Julia's on.
Okay, Jackie, we can see you now. Well, we can see you. Okay, plain and clear. Yeah.
Okay.
let us pray, please, to get started here.
Okay.
Dear Lord, we thank you for this opportunity to join together in discussions and deliberations, and we ask that you guide us and give us your strength and wisdom in understanding each other and appreciating the qualities of all human beings and equal rights and justice for all, and to help us be a part of that and take a stand in that and know what our role should be in this effort. And we thank you for this opportunity, and we ask that you be with us. In Christ's name we pray.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
All right.
So this chapter starts out tough because it starts out with the story of Emmett Till, which we are all very familiar with, and just one of the most heartbreaking stories of our history, I think. but I admire the mama in her determination that she would have an open casket so that people would see what was done to her son. That was incredibly courageous, and my hat's off to her. I also didn't realize what an inspiration that was to Rosa Parks. I mean, we all know the story of Rosa Parks and the bus, but I don't think we all know what a civil rights leader Rosa Parks was. And so her keeping her seat on the bus was a tiny part of what she really accomplished in her efforts.
Yes.
So it's pretty impressive. I gave you a homework assignment last month, last meeting, which was, we've all read Martin Luther King's letter from the Birmingham jail.
That's right.
But I don't know how many of us have read the letter he was responding to.
Never, ever had read it.
Exactly. And so I thought it was significant to do that because it was a group of pastors and bishops and rabbis appealing to him to slow down, calm down, and sort of blaming outsiders for inciting riots and all this kind of stuff. And it's interesting because we just before the camera was on had a conversation about common sense. That letter actually ends with, we appeal to both our white and Negro citizenry to observe the principles of law and order and common sense, which I thought was kind of ironic that they thought common sense should be patience. They said, we express understanding that honest convictions in racial manners could be properly pursued in the courts, but urge that decision of the courts should in the meantime be peacefully obeyed. So they were really appealing to King to calm everybody down and don't be demonstrating and all that stuff, even peaceful demonstrations. They didn't want any any trouble. Yeah, exactly.
I just put a link to excerpts from the letter in the chat.
Oh, good.
Okay.
So anybody on Zoom can pull that up.
So thank you for having us read it. I was so very glad at
Yeah.
last week. So, and I let Rick and Bruce know when we were in our INET meeting, and the rest know that was a homework assignment, and it was a short letter. It's just short.
It was.
And I was so happy that you said read it. And so
Good.
now I feel better knowing what was said exactly from his letter.
Well,
I
it
could
helps you
tell-
appreciate his response more
Yes.
when you know what he was responding to.
That's right.
That was my reaction as
Right.
well. The other thing that's interesting, I think, in his letter, which is significant to the conversation, is he says, I've almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in his stride toward freedom is not the White Citizens Council or the Ku Klux Klan,
My Lord.
but the white moderate who is more devoted to order than justice.
That's right.
Who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice. Who says, I can't agree with you. I can agree with you in your goal, but I can't agree with your methods. I don't know what methods, they think. I mean, wasn't like they tried everything else, so
Don't do anything.
exactly.
Don't do anything.
Exactly.
Think and feel a certain way, but just don't do it.
Don't act on. Don't act on. your
Don't
goals.
act on it.
That's exactly right.
Griffin has something to say. Griffin.
Yes.
Griffin.
They were,
Oh, no.
it also pointed out just how rooted the church itself was in that mindset, because it was comfortable for the church to be in that mindset.
Exactly.
The moderate kind of mindset.
Moderate.
It was more, the writer was more letting us know where the comfort zone of the church was in that particular time and movement, the civil rights movement. But the comfort zone became in, feel pain, but don't show it.
Exactly.
And Rick's got a comment too.
Go ahead, Rick.
But as I read their letter, it struck me that they were living in a fool's paradise, saying that we've got everything under control already.
Don't rock the boat.
And I went and found something that Billy Graham said later that same year after King delivered his "I Have a Dream" speech.
Uh-huh.
Billy Graham, quote, said, "Only when Christ comes again will little white children in Alabama walk hand in hand with little black children."
Only when Christ
So
comes.
here are these.
Oh my
When it
God.
comes again, only in the second coming will that happen, because he saw Alabama more clearly than the pastors who wrote that letter saw their home state of Alabama.
Wow.
And he was the liberal in the group. Graham,
Of them all,
of them.
of them
Yeah.
all.
And he did eventually integrate his revivals,
Mhm.
but you know, I can't help but think about how his son has carried on the ministry, which has been
Oh.
much more stringent and
I haven't been following him. What is he doing? Is he including everybody or?
Oh,
is he-
no.
Excluding
yeah.
everybody. He's
Okay, he's nothing like his dad.
nothing.
Nothing like his.
Nope.
not.
Nope.
He's a part of what's happening.
It's a really disservice.
I
to
cut
his
him off.
father.
I used
Exactly.
to deal with the Samaritan person stuff from our church.
Yeah.
And was feeding into it because of him. Then when I saw the real side of him, I was like, okay, we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
We're not even participating with you.
Yeah.
Okay,
And I think that would probably break Billy Graham's heart. I mean,
yeah,
even though I agree he was one of the moderates that wanted to take things slow and, you know, it was like they had this belief that things are just gonna, you know, work out. A Pollyanna view that things will
Yeah.
eventually be okay. Just be patient.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
just-
it's not okay today.
Leave it up to Governor Wallace and what's his name, the police chief in Birmingham.
Bull,
Bull
yeah,
Connor.
Bull.
Leave it up to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, like today, we'll leave it up to DeSantis, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh,
That
my.
was bold. That was bold.
That was, that you would go there.
Yeah, that was bold. Truth. There's a whole lot of truth to it, though. But
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, that letter was telling Dr. King to wait. And Dr. King replied to that, how long must we wait? We've been waiting too long already. It's time for us to start moving in the right direction. And therefore, he came with that letter that he had.
They were telling him to wait, but at the same time too, they were like, besides, you are an outsider.
Mhm.
You don't live here.
Yeah.
This ain't even your state to be concerned about. So we're handling it, our residents and our whatever. And they were trying to like let him see you are an outsider.
Yeah.
And he had to explain to them on why I'm invited here. Because I'm part of the South Carolina, the Southern Christian movement, whatever. Yeah, he had to let them know I belong here.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then, of course, we had Brown versus Board of Education. I don't know if Jim Prater, you want to talk about that because you have a lot more experience with that than I do.
Well, I think it's important. Most of this book has been about other places and other situations. And as for us here in the South Carolina Synod, I think it would be worth the discussion of what actually happened here in South Carolina.
Uh-huh.
And what didn't happen here in South Carolina. The ultimate decision in Brown versus the Board of Education before the Supreme Court was actually carved here in South Carolina as a result of two things. One, the attack and the blinding of Isaac Woodard in Batesburg, South Carolina in 1946, which caused the NAACP and Orson Welles, of all people, to become involved with that situation and to promote that, and to make that a cause for public consumption.
Well, and that's how it got Truman's attention, which led to the integration of the military, right?
Yes, yes.
Jim, briefly, what about Isaac? What happened? Well, anyway, he was coming home. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, Isaac Woodard was a soldier who was on his way home to Fairfield, South Carolina,
I'm sorry.
after his discharge at the end of World War II. He was on a bus headed to Fairfield when he and the bus driver, who urged him to take a seat and shut up and sit in the back of the bus.
He needed to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, and got into a confrontation in Batesburg, South Carolina. The bus driver stopped the bus, and the sheriff of Batesburg and his deputies pulled Isaac Woodard off the bus and literally beat him to a pulp, and took him to jail without medical care for 3 days. And as a result of that, he lost his eyesight. And that story became sort of the front and center issue. Orson Welles became involved and put it on his nationwide radio show. The NAACP got involved, and Woodard became sort of the centerpiece, if you will. It as a result of all of that publicity and the story, the treatment of Isaac Woodard as a veteran reached Harry Truman and his cabinet, and became the reason for Truman expediting the executive order to integrate the armed forces of the United States in 1948.
48, yeah.
As a result of that, and legal action taken, the case of Isaac Woodard reached the federal courts in Charleston, South Carolina, and the case went before Judge Wadey's Waring, who was a 7th generation Charlestonian, who'd been on the bench for quite some time. But the jury, an all-white jury, acquitted Sheriff Shull and his deputies in less than 90 minutes. But the result of that was the impact on Judge Waring and Judge Waring's wife. And Judge Waring and his wife completely changed their views about race and segregation and
Justice.
the state of matters related to all that in the United States. And Waring, as a result of that, took a very activist role in civil rights matters, to the extent that Waring actually guided Thurgood Marshall in establishing the path that Briggs versus Elliott would take in the state of South Carolina. And Waring directed Marshall to not just challenge Plessy versus Ferguson, the 1896 decision before the court that established separate but equal as a doctrine. But Waring decided that he and Marshall would not just challenge Plessy versus Ferguson and the doctrine of separate but equal, but would take on the question of segregation head on. And
I mentioned this because it's relevant to what we've been studying. So the historical marker for the blinding of Sergeant Isaac Woodard is up in Batesburg, Leesville, where the bus stopped. They're planning on turning it into a park, but you know, cities move slower than churches sometimes. And I was there with a group, and the town manager, assistant town manager, was showing us the site and talking about it. Sheriff Shull's church is across the street.
Okay.
This
Yeah.
happens
yeah,
in
Sheriff-
front of his church.
Sheriff Shull's cousin was a groomsman in my father's wedding.
I mean, it's South Carolina. Like these
Yes.
are real people. This is not fiction. This is real people with families, and
But
you
but-
know,
Making stuff up.
Waring guided Marshall into a direct challenge to the notion of segregation, not just the challenge to separate but equal, which became the guiding principle in the case of Brown versus the Board of Education. What happened, Briggs v. Elliott was before Waring in the court, and the state of South Carolina caved and conceded in the court case that separate but equal was in fact the situation in South Carolina.
was it equal, Jackie?
And Judge Waring made Thurgood Marshall, actually they agreed to withdraw after the state conceded. Judge Waring allowed Marshall to proceed on other grounds and refile the suit of Briggs v. Elliott to challenge the notion of segregation, period. And what Judge Waring knew was that because they filed it in federal court, there'd be a 3-judge panel, it would be convened, and Marshall and the NAACP would lose 2-1. But it was the dissent that was most important. And Judge Waring wrote the dissent. And so when that automatically went to the United States Supreme Court, his dissent in Briggs v. Elliott became the centerpiece as all the 4 related court cases were bundled together. And Brown versus the board, because it was the senior case, became the title of the case that went before but Earl Warren and the United States Supreme Court in the 54 decision adopted Judge Waring's decision, his dissent. And the challenge to segregation was the basis of the Supreme Court's decision in Brown v. Board of Education. And so that, again, established, what happened here in South Carolina in Briggs v. Elliott was really the basis for the Brown decision. And as a result of that, of course, as they say, the rest is history.
Absolutely.
But the rest of the history on Judge Waring and his wife, they were completely terrorized by the Klan
Yes.
and harassed, and they, when he retired, they wound up moving to New York City. Just they had to get out of South Carolina because they were just terrorized and ostracized.
That's right.
But I mean, Jim said 7th generation Charlestonian. I mean, they were completely rejected by their social group in Charleston, and they were leaving the state.
And that's the way it was with any white that had the audacity or the nerve to want to say, wait a minute,
This is wrong.
This
That's
is
right.
wrong.
That's right.
We've got to stand with what's right. They were going to catch hell, living hell on earth from other white people. It's been that way for the long, that was what was real.
That's right.
Not what was, what is.
What is?
Is
What is?
Make the white people get threatened now by other white people for trying.
That's
Well, see,
I mean, I know,
I,
but
wait a minute,
we can have this conversation without anybody worrying for death threats right this second.
well,
That is an improvement. It's not far enough, but it's.
well, I just like to add, I remember my father saying, and he was born in 1912, my father. And so he and I were having a conversation about race, and I used to have to work in tobacco for this white farmer. And I thought the white farmer was pretty nice and loving to me and my sisters and the other black children that were farm hands working at his barn. And I thought he was pretty okay. And so my dad said one day, because my dad allowed us to work for him. His name was Gary Page. And he said, I never did like Gary Page. Gary Page died or something. He said, I never did like Gary Page, even though I let my children work for him. I said, well, Daddy was always good to us. He seemed pretty fair to us, and he was good to us, and we didn't mind working for him. He said, what I didn't like about Gary Page is that, and this is everything that I read in this chapter here, Gary Page didn't like Martin Luther King, and he talked negative about Martin Luther King. So I'm going, what, Dad? Well, what was his problem with Martin Luther King? He said that Martin Luther King is pushing for integration. He wants our two races to be together in harmony and live in harmony. He said, but really what he's pushing for is for the black men to get in contact with white women. I read that in here. That was always the biggest fear of integration. Because the black man will want the white woman, the white woman will want the little black white girl will want the black boy. And that's a main reason. And so when my dad told me that Gary thought that way, I was shocked. I had never heard of such. But he wasn't alone. This Gary, this Page man that Dad was talking about, I didn't know that was the overall thought. The fear of integration would cause sexual relation and relationships to develop between the races. Brown baby.
I see that his hand up.
But he didn't get that part wrong because it sure did.
Well, don't we know it?
Dr. McCullough, we see your hand up.
Yeah, part of my if you will notice from the initial stage when I joined you, I have always contended that the civil rights struggle and the Voting Rights Acts and all of the progress that have been made was not only at the expense of Black folk. And we think about Thurgood Marshall being helped Even the letter that we were talking about from Birmingham, the Christian Leadership Council that was then being established. The idea of MLK Jr. being told he gone too far.
Mm-hmm.
There was a level of complacency that was characterized by fear and trepidation. But what emboldened Dr. King was not just the fact that he had Black support. There were white folk who stood with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to always lift that up for consideration, because if Thurgood Marshall did not have the support that he got, the idea of trying to fight and advocate for integration here in the South was going to be a fallacy. And part of what we see in this whole what I call a movement to bring to raise the consciousness of the church, the Christian church, irrespective of Black and white. But for us who sit in this platform, it is the idea of us leading each other, is that creating a symbiotic relationship that will help us to galvanize and fight against the illness of society. Because if we don't have that support of each other, the possibility of going solo it's a hard-fought battle that we cannot expect to win. So I wanted to bring that up because it is even as you read the letter from Birmingham, I read both the letter that was sent to MLK and he responded. Most of the folk who were telling the go he gone too far was his own brothers and sisters. Because of the complacency and the fear that had arrested them. Hey man, I think we can handle it. In other words, you are an outsider. What are you doing here in Birmingham in the first place? We got this stuff under control, when in fact it was not under control.
Yeah.
You know, and I think we need to continue to raise that up, because unless the prophet Amos said, two cannot walk together unless they agree.
They agree.
And that's what this movement is all about. And I want to make sure that I continue to lift this up for our consideration, or else we're not going to make inroads in what we're trying to achieve.
We got to understand that one of the greatest persons that was against King was called the Black Bishop of the African Americans.
That's right.
And he was over a whole lot of churches. And he was adamant against him.
Is that one that was friends with his daddy and
Friends
used to
with his
come
daddy,
and
yeah.
be at their house, and the boy grew up, King.
That's right.
Young King grew up around this man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about a turncoat
Yeah.
Yes.
against King like that. He was friends with his dad and was in there, were among them and turned
But
against.
don't you think that was fair? I mean,
Jealousy, one.
well, and fear of
losing his position.
don't want to rock the boat. And,
Yeah. But that's what it was.
I mean,
but
because complacency and the comfort zone that somebody mentioned here a minute ago, we want to be comfortable, so if we got to do something that makes us uncomfortable, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a message to us too. I mean,
That's humanity, right?
how far are we willing to stand up for everybody's rights, whether it's Black or gay or whatever, transgender, for everybody's rights is uncomfortable.
Yeah, and that's where the role of the prophet comes in. The prophetic voice cannot be silenced. The prophet of old always went at the expense and the detriment of their own survivor.
that's right.
I mean, look at you.
You cannot be a prophet and you compromise what you notice at stake. I mean, it's ironic that even at J. Edgar Hoover called MLK Jr. as one of the most dangerous men in the United States.
Sure did.
Yeah.
But this very man who was the most dangerous man, after he had made the accomplishment to the extent now that he becomes the freedom fighter that everybody didn't expect him to have been. So sometimes the prophet got to stand up.
Yes. Matter of fact, we have to stand up. Matter of fact, she mentioned Emmett Till. And Emmett Till's mother decided to open the casket. And when she did that, it went out throughout the world. The Albany picked it up. All of the black magazines picked it up, and that wasn't enough to send it around the world. The news articles, news media
That's right.
picked it up, and some of the white brothers and sisters came in and joined. And also,
And the
talking
same
about
thing happened
same
with
thing.
Emmett Till. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Mhm.
When it, in today's on social media, it would go viral. It went viral.
It
That's
went
what Orson
viral.
Welles
Yeah.
did.
It did,
And
yeah.
people
But,
came.
but in that particular time, it did go viral.
It did.
And-
It absolutely did.
And the impact or the effect that she as an Emmett's mother, that she wanted to have on this country by opening that coffin, she got that.
She
got
did.
It's what,
She did.
I mean, it was
That's
Yeah.
right.
because believe it or not, you'd be surprised how many black folks woke up when they saw what was in that coffin. Woke up to the reality of where we
Everybody,
truly were.
everybody.
Everybody woke up. So
Yeah.
so she got what she was after.
Yeah.
But what are we doing with it now?
Now, didn't the woman just die? She just died.
Yes, she just died.
She just died a month ago or something.
Emmett Till's mother?
No, that the white woman that Emmett Till was killed with. Yeah, she just
Yeah.
died.
Yeah.
Now, I forgot there was a story or something written about her. I think she either recanted or now I never read the history. I never read it, but I saw TV versions of it. In the TV story that I saw, I remember the woman from what they showed depicted. The woman was not really gung-ho on saying he did this to me, he whatever, but her husband and that brother-in-law of his were adamant about, I'm gonna force you to say, to push this further that he violated you.
Mhm.
But she, to me in the movie, it was almost kind of showing like she kind of was reluctant, but the husband and his brother-in-law were the ones who were persistent about, let's go farther with this. I'm upset that he looked at you, so let's push it further.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, that movie came out and you saw that.
Yeah.
But in life, she said that was not true.
That's what I heard. That's
but,
yeah.
But soon as she said it, her family got behind her, said, oh no, something wrong with her.
That's right.
And she took it back.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
because of the fact that the federal government started looking into it.
it's no different.
And so the family said, no, she didn't know what she was talking about. And so they couldn't do anything else with that.
Yeah. So that's always been the case.
Yeah.
It's always been you got something come up against you when you want to do right and you want to take the stand for right. If your family and the whole race is going to turn against you, you almost have to succumb and say, okay. Yeah.
White male dominance again.
Yup.
But it also shows that everybody trapped, right? Like that's been one of our, we talked about in cast and we talked about in this, that we're all trapped in the system.
Yeah.
That racism isn't just a problem for people with black skin or dark brown skin. Racism is a problem for everybody,
Right.
Because it traps us in patterns of sin.
Yeah, it does.
Absolutely.
It does because for the most part, as African Americans, because of the system, and there's always been a thing that, well, we don't take care of one another like we should. And we know that we oppress, and we won't even help another oppressed person. And it's always been said that we have like this crab mentality.
Drag them all back down.
Drag them all back down. But it's systemic. It
is.
It happens, but it's systemic.
Yeah.
She's going to continue.
Okay.
But I hear Bruce. I haven't heard from Bruce now, Neo. If you have anything to say, unmute. If not, then we're going to go on. Bruce, Neo. Okay. Neither one. Anybody else up there on the screen? Okay. We can continue.
Well, I thought it was interesting that they made the point of the artist that did the famous picture of Jesus that we all are familiar with. And
what was that? You said that was okay. Let me see if I can.
Well,
now tell me, expound more on that.
Well, it's just that
that was in this chapter.
it is.
On that.
It is, but but it's right. I mean, you know, he's had sort of blondish hair and blue eyes and all. I mean, he was Middle Eastern. I mean, he would not have had blonde hair, blue eyes. I'm sorry. But I did find out. Now, keep in mind, Reformation, you know, got good Dutch Fork German heritage at Reformation. We have a sculpture in our above our altar of the teaching Christ, and so we needed a picture of it for a brochure. And you can't tell this from back in the sanctuary, you know. And so I had to get up on a ladder to, you know, with my camera to get a close-up picture of this teaching Christ in our sanctuary. He's got blonde hair and blue eyes.
Well,
We're a German, you know, church. I mean, the history of Reformation is Dutch Fork German. And I was like, oh my God, he would not have had blonde hair and blue eyes.
And that's a complicated issue
Middle
because
Eastern. I mean,
every culture before basically 20th century America painted Jesus to look like them.
well,
Like if you look at the Chinese, like there's
That's
lots of
you're
really
exactly
beautiful
right.
art, but it only becomes a problem when you layer it with the systemic oppression that the white church is inflicting.
well, and that one, I forgot his name, the artist name's in the book.
Warner Solman.
Yeah, but it went viral. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
you see that particular portrait
Everywhere.
of Christ everywhere. It's like, that is so unrealistic for
Blue
the
eyes.
culture and the time and the, you know, all that. It's just-
but I do have a question here. Griffin, what color was Jesus and his hair in the church and when you were young?
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
No, three-part harmony.
He was white. And actually, to tell you the truth, as a young kid, I grew up in Bible school and all of that. So I've always been, you know, in the church in some shape, form, or fashion. But I remember there were times that I looked at that picture and thought about just how beautiful that guy looked. You know, it really wasn't his color. It was the beauty and the serenity. It was what the picture, it was the emotion that the picture was offering me at the time.
That's a really good point. That's a good point.
When I woke up, when somebody woke me up one day and said, well, you know that no white folks was in Egypt at the time, with no long hair and all that, and it made sense. There was a reason why the hair was kinky and all of that, but there was everything indicated to the opposite of what that beautiful man represented in my youth as a young kid growing up.
Yeah,
That's a really good point.
That's a good-
really good.
that is a good point. And I remember when I was growing up and I saw this man with his hair and blue eyes. I mean, he was a great man. And this was Jesus. That was Jesus.
Yeah.
But then when I became pastor and I started going to one of my churches, and my wife went and got a black Jesus, put in a manger.
Okay.
And we carried and put it in the manger. And then we left church because next time, you know, Christmas, and we're going to have this black Jesus and we're going to bring it forth.
Yeah.
I got there, they took my Jesus out and put in a blue-eyed baby.
Mind you, these
My
were
wife said,
black folks who did that.
Yes. Okay, now I'm gonna go to Macaulay, because I need his perspective, from Africa, not
Yes.
America.
That's right.
That's
right.
Well, I mean, we all know culturally there's the universal depiction of Christ from a Eurocentric culture has always been across the world. But the depiction of him being a Eurocentric figure did not in a way interfere with the consciousness of God's eminent presence everywhere in the psyche of the African.
Gotcha.
They realize that God is omnipresent. God is everywhere. And so as the result, going to the riverfront or somewhere to the creek where there was some sense of solitude, where one could have an intimate moment with Christ all by him or herself, or the missionary, so to speak. The local congregation would go and gather. They wanted to be somewhere in a solitary place and just have that communion with God, irrespective of the pigmentation or whatever portrayal of Christ that they had seen in most of the churches, because even the stained glass windows were a depiction of Eurocentric Christ. But like the brother said earlier, it was not the matter of the radiance of his hair or his eye color and so forth. There was a God consciousness, that there is a God somewhere.
Exactly.
I may not know how he looks, that country, even though this is the picture that I've seen. Because when I grew up, what I saw in the church that I grew up in, the stained glass window was a portrayal of a Eurocentric Christ.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
But the worshiping of that Christ was not predicated upon the fact that he was a Eurocentric figure.
Exactly.
Okay,
And that's pretty much what I was saying.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
okay.
That's interesting.
That is interesting. It just so happens that at the church I pastor, we have these stained glass windows. And when I first got to the church, the white pastor there that was mentoring me used to make fun of, if I was a black person and I came in this church, I'd be a little turned off at how pale lily white this Jesus is in all of the stained glass windows. So he made that comment. I just look past the pale.
Yeah.
Look past. You look past that color. All I know is Jesus is in the stained glass window. So I'm not looking at the complexion, but he's pointing out to me, well, it's a turnoff to me because he's pale white, he's lily white and everything. So
is pale white Jesus a white people problem?
Yeah.
no, just saying as a black person, I'd be turned off.
I'm just trying, this is new information for me and I'm just trying to process.
Okay.
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 I mean, because I would have thought the same thing, but I grew up white and blue hair, well, not blue hair, blue eyed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I never really thought about Jesus having a race, honestly, until I was older in the faith. But I also remember singing "Holy, Holy, Holy" or "This is the Feast," as part of the Lutheran liturgy, and wondering how they knew what the tune was of the angels around the throne. Like my little elementary school brain was sure that was the same pitches that the angels were singing.
Right.
And so that conception of this is what Jesus looks like, even though we have it's important. But just thinking through,
Okay.
But I do think that leading into the fact that other religions then appealed to some African Americans makes sense to me. And I know a lot did turn to, Islam.
Yeah.
And because
White man's religion, Christianity, it was a phrase
Exactly.
of saying that Christianity is white man's religion.
yeah.
Period.
That's correct.
Right? That was
So I can understand if there's a religion that makes a black man feel more empowered in his faith,
and Islam was that.
then I can absolutely understand. I mean,
Islam
I'm from Kentucky and I loved Cassius Clay / Muhammad Ali.
Yes.
Because I grew up loving that man.
Right.
And but I got it
Yeah.
when he decided to convert. I got it. And his gold medal's still in the Ohio River somewhere. Outside of Louisville. Because he threw it over the bridge in the Ohio River. But I get that.
But the thing about it is, being black in America, there was a psyche instilled in us that white was right.
Yeah.
Always,
always.
always.
Okay, so now I grew up with this, and so then when I looked at white Jesus, you know,
You didn't think about
I
it.
didn't think about it.
Yeah.
Right,
When we
right.
became conscious of this, when we had some of the brothers to say, I'm gonna go black Muslim or Islam.
Yeah.
And I went too.
You did.
Did you?
But the problem was they didn't have Jesus.
That's true.
Now, I'm not talking about white Jesus, I'm talking about they didn't have Jesus.
Jesus,
That gives me life everlasting.
Jesus.
Wait a minute, that's something wrong with this. All right, so then the black, that wasn't for me.
Mhm,
Then people were saying to me, black is beautiful.
mhm,
Wait a minute, this is white Jesus.
mhm.
Okay, then my Jesus can be what? Black
Black.
too.
That's
All
right.
right.
Jim, isn't that, they use the baby dolls in the brick?
Yes,
Go ahead.
yes,
That's right.
yes.
And what a child will look at.
Tell that.
Doctor-
story.
Dr. Clark's experiments
That's right.
with kids' perception of good and not good and evil, but good and
And
not
bad.
good. With dolls, white dolls and black dolls.
Uh-huh.
And that was a key part of the testimony in the trial that Thurgood Marshall attacked segregation head on.
Mm-hmm.
Was Dr. Clark's testimony about his experiments with children and their perception of white and black dolls.
Because I believe it was so, Jim, that both the black baby and the white baby looked at the white doll
And
That's
called-
and so good.
That's all good.
That's right.
And then
Yeah.
and looked at the black doll, the dark
Yeah.
doll, and saw bad. Both the white
Yeah.
and black child, black
That's right.
baby.
Yeah,
That's right.
because it was instilled
It
in
was.
us.
It's a little baby though, is what we said. This was a baby.
You
Yeah.
know, that it's instilled in faith too.
By preschool,
Yeah.
we see
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
That was.
But I'm talking, we're not talking school age. These were little babies in this experiment.
For children, yeah.
That's
These
right.
were babies that hadn't been taught anything yet.
Well, they've been-
Yeah.
But they had.
taught.
Huh?
But they had.
Yeah.
And a baby that can't even talk or reason or anything like that?
No, they were young
No.
children.
Young
like
children,
children,
yeah.
They could
Young
talk
children.
Okay.
because they got to
In
choose.
Clark's
Yeah,
example,
yeah.
in Clark's, okay,
Yeah.
because I remember seeing something. I remember seeing a test on TV or somewhere where there was a baby, not no walking, talking,
But like,
able to be taught, but like sitting up toddler, sitting up like in a diaper and pointed at the white doll and was not able to say anything or say good or bad, but was drawn to
No.
favorably to the white doll versus the black doll.
Yeah.
I saw that test.
Yeah.
That was another test. That wasn't Clark's.
I mean, the tests keep coming back the same even now.
Yeah, but with a child, with a baby that hadn't even been taught anything.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
Oh, but now we have a choice.
Oh, and-
Because, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
Well, I
Okay.
guess,
coming on down.
yeah, does anybody else have anything else they want to add or contribute to?
I didn't know the white Christians were that much against King. See, I didn't hear this. I didn't
Oh,
know
okay.
that they were, the church literally did not support this troublemaking man.
The thing
Now, I have
about
to
it,
tell you, I didn't either.
the not,
I didn't-
I didn't know, not to this degree.
you're saying white, but we're talking about black and whites. It was only a few who supported him.
Because
Yeah.
he made people uncomfortable, black and white, he made
Yeah.
people uncomfortable
Right, yeah.
because he was telling the truth.
Until
And the
the story
truth
that
can
Jim
make people
told. Yeah.
uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Yeah, what I think would be interesting, based again on my experience, and because we have the Synod Convention coming up, what would be interesting, I think, is a review during this time period of the resolutions that came before the South Carolina Synod Convention regarding civil rights.
The archives are in the basement of the library. It's all there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
mean,
find out, and I'm not sure we want to.
well, yeah, I mean, from my own experience in the mid and late 80s, and I'd be interested to know whether or not we ever passed a resolution condemning the flying of the Confederate flag over the State House. Because in none of the conventions I ever attended and debated that matter did I win. So,
can I be heard?
Yeah.
Do it quick. Hurry up.
I'm doing the best I can with this mind of mine. I'm wondering, I want to ask a question that makes me nervous, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Okay.
I don't get nervous easy.
What space?
This is the space.
This is the space. Here is safe space.
We're all nervous. Go ahead.
Are we still doing that here in the church as we speak? I mean, aren't we still doing pacification work that makes us look like we're doing work, as opposed to doing work that really has a visible impact, a meaningful impact? Are we still, we've gone through this book and it talked about the many different areas where Black preachers had to acquiesce to certain things in order to move forward. Are we still acquiescing? Even though we're doing what we're doing, we're having these sessions. I know that, not from an in-depth study of it, but I do know that the national is being challenged more and more every day about race relations and reconciliation. Are we still pacifying this thing, or what?
I would say that yes, the pattern is repeating itself.
Yes. Because see, Griff, Cornel West, Black author, has written this book called The Middle Class.
Right.
And so in that, he pointed out the fact that when it comes to the Black race, Dr. King, he used as an example, was not about living rich and having the best of everything, dressing the best, driving the best car, living in a better house, and all that stuff, while the rest of his race struggled.
And I know that to be a fact.
The middle class Black of today is like, I'm out of the slums, I'm out of the ghetto, and they got to fend for themselves, because I almost a white man's mentality of I pulled myself up by my bootstraps. That's the mindset. That's what
rest of y'all are on young.
Yeah. I can't risk losing all that I got and work hard for the sake of these others over here.
Right.
That's the mindset. I've seen it.
But on the other side of that coin, that is a desire of mine to give up whatever it is I have to give up for the ultimate goal, biblical goal, God-led goal of all of us coming together as a people. The thing is that it calls for sacrifice, major sacrifice, on all of ourselves, all at the same time, in order to have that kind of impact.
Well, Griff, let me point out something. Doing the more justice work, this is what I'm finding. The churches that are most involved with doing the justice work, these people who are doing the justice work don't need, or they're not getting the inequalities of the work that we're fighting for, like affordable housing and not having enough food and living in bad school districts and things like that. These people are fighting for the justice, but the average person that's suffering from this isn't supporting the justice work. So the idea is that I'm dedicated to it, and the other people that are in that ministry to do justice, which is a mandate of God, will cost you something. it does cause a certain amount of discomfort.
Yes.
And the truth of the matter is that it will cost you something. It is going to cost you something.
And
But-
guess what? The Lutheran churches, this is what I've said to the bishop. I said it to Bishop Yost, and I said it to Bishop Averson. I said, it does kind of grate me a little bit that out of all these 35 churches that are involved with this justice work, and the majority of them are white people, and they're upper class, and they're not living down needing the stuff, and they're into it, they're putting their time, money, and effort in it. You see what I'm saying? And the less participation of Lutheran churches.
Exactly.
And
And,
the one big one and my little small one.
I'm at a more justice meeting
They're gonna
and
charge.
say to someone that I'm with the Lutheran church, and they look like and start acting like they're smelling, you know what, you know? It's basically exactly what you're saying, Jackie.
Yeah.
I don't want to step out there, you know. If you know how it is, if everybody, what the guy said, wanted to know why he showed up in the street naked. He said, because that's what he was told that everybody else was going to do. He only got there and found out he was the only person in the street that was naked. You know, and that's basically what it is. It's a scripting of everything that these years have placed upon us, these circumstances have placed upon us. They are so layered until it just sometimes is frustrating. I'm fighting, you fighting, Leroy's fighting. We're fighting the same identical battle that we were fighting 40, 50, 60 years ago. I'm 70 something. Well, you don't count, Jack, because you ain't that old.
I do. I'm older than you. I'm right behind you.
You know, but we guys, and we have these conversations. I'm sitting here participating in this book study, having these conversations, learning and listening to white people who are learning and sharing as well. But I'm still frustrated that I am no further along in this effort for this utopia that God has laid out for me than I was 40, 50 years ago.
Yes, my concern.
Okay.
It takes concerted efforts to arrive at a tangible thought of systematic, well-calculated, achievable goal.
Yeah.
Yes. In fact, you were in Dillon when you visited St. Matthew. Brother who was sitting not far from where you were sitting.
Right.
And made the same comment you just made.
Right.
Which is not a surprise. But I would contend that in order for us to arrive somewhere, this ongoing conversation should not cause us to be paralyzed by frustration.
Right.
Simply because in order to create a community that raises the consciousness of where we need to go, our collaboration plays a major role. In Dillon County, where I've been for the past 6 years, the first Black sheriff to ever be elected since Reconstruction, I led a coalition of Black and white congregations. But do you know half of those preachers who did not come to any of these meetings that we had? Black.
Not a bit surprised.
Black preachers did not come. And this was in the heat of COVID. I didn't have to drive. I went there, you know, just to check on my members. But most of our meetings were held in Zoom. I provided the Zoom account. And Black preachers were very, very hesitant to join us because they felt going in the general election, this Black sheriff would be going against another white gentleman who wanted to be a sheriff.
Right.
And I want their faces to be seen because then that means that we have to live with that with regret. What I told them, I got no fish to fry in this order. But as long as I'm AME in this town, I'm going to do what justice called for.
That's right.
There you go.
That's right. That's right.
And
Amen.
we're kind of running out of time. We're going to ask you in a
Thank
few
you,
minutes
Doctor.
tell us anything you have to say, but I also need to say that as I look around, Griffin and Jackie, only a few years ago, if you look around the table, we could find only Jackie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Now, you know, I'm at Reformation. I might not be long. I'll be alone for a little
Yeah,
while.
You're gonna stay there for a while.
And then Griffin is all down in Charleston,
Yeah.
all kind of ways, and he got people following him, and you got people
Well,
coming.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
Can I close out with this? When you said it used to be maybe just me, Dr. McCauley, the former bishop,
Yeah.
showed him a vision of a white Lutheran church in a kind of predominantly black neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Seminary is where the Lutheran seminary is.
Mm-hmm.
The vision was get a black pastor and show that this church is really opening its arms to all people.
Yeah.
And you'll see this church change.
Yeah.
Took 12 years.
Yeah.
And that former bishop is a member of that church.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, when the church gets ready to close, because we don't have enough money or anything,
That's correct.
it took one white female
Yeah.
who has a business.
Yeah.
When she saw that her church might close, and she only came on Christmas and Easter only. She never came any other time.
Mm-hmm.
Saw the church was about to close. She started coming every Sunday since Christmas Eve, bringing all the black people she knows through her business, and they're coming to this church and have been coming since Easter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now this church is starting to look like
Yeah.
God had told the bishop it's going to happen one day. And what we know is that it may cause us to lose a couple of white folks.
That's correct. That's correct.
That's okay.
They got lots of other.
And this is what we're up against right now.
That's it. That's it. And you know, at the end, Dr. Ken, at the end, the very black preacher who was staying aside, didn't want to come to the end of the meeting. When the man was about to be inducted into the office at the state house, I mean, at the courthouse, downtown Dillon, they called this African preacher, who's an AME preacher, to lay hand on him. And all the black preachers that complain, how do they expect an AME preacher who's not a Baptist to lay? But this is
We're not gonna do that. We should.
Yeah.
I think she said she's closing out, so we'll turn it over. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jim. Good job.
yeah.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, Jim, thank you. You really did share
Good
some
job.
very good.
Let's keep up the fight. That's the bottom line. Let's keep up
That's
the fight.
exactly right. Okay, let's close with prayer,
Thank her
please.
for.
And Jim,
Thank you.
Your team. We're your team. I appreciate it.
Let us pray, please. We thank you, God, for the opportunity to learn from the resistance of Black Christians during the Civil Rights Movement. We confess that for many of us, we too might have been silent during the Civil Rights Movement. We pray for the courage to stand firm when the modern day issues of race and justice continue to arise. We invite you, dear Lord, to reveal areas where we can take a stand now. Please be with us as we continue in this discussion. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Man.
Thank you.
Continue the fight.
Yeah, yeah.
Pastor Leroy,
Yes.
have you identified some books that we want to possibly consider?
Well,
We do.
We have
we got
many
a
others.
whole
lots of
stack right
choices.
here, but Between the World and Me has been suggested. I think that
That's a
Rick
good one.
came up with one. Rick, didn't you have? Where's Rick?
Rick disappeared.
Okay, Rick came up with one, and then of course, this is one that we want you to take a look at.
What's the name?
It's
Between the World and Me.
by Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Emily, please, will you email those names to me, please?
Hang on, I'm gonna put them in the chat.
All right.
No, email them to me because I ain't gonna find them in the chat.
You won't.
You're asking more of my skills than I can give.
So
I,
is
I
that-
think this is one of the.
Thank you all.
Of the group.
One of the best
I
ones, we got
really recommend that.
the color of the law.
Color of law,
We got one person saying, look up color of the law, the color.
the color
of
of
the
the
law.
law.
And between the world and.
Everybody else,
and-
me,
and
and me.
Okay, so I'm gonna look at these two, do a
These
review
two,
on them.
yeah,
and see.
okay, we'll do
Yeah.
that. All right,
Is
so
the
right
color
now
of
we
what
have
now? Is that love?
Huh?
The color of love?
Law, L-A-W.
Okay.
Can you make?
And, and the other one is what?
I can, hang on,
hang
wait a
on,
minute,
hang on.
I
Wait
don't
a
know
minute.
where our camera is, so I don't.
our camera's on top of the TV.
Look like we're heading toward that one now.
That's color of law.
The color of law.
Okay.
And Jan recommends it highly.
Well, it just explains so much
There it is.
about how
Now, what's
so
the,
much of the racism in this country was codified by law. Federal law, local laws,
Okay,
state
well,
laws. I mean,
that's-
so much of what is embedded in our society
is law?
came from legislative action at all levels of government. And I think it's just important for us to understand that.
And I agree with you because as I kept pointing out early on, every time it was the law that moved certain things forward within the church, not the spirit, but the law.
That's right.
Because wherever it was necessary, they found a way to circumvent the spiritual approach to it and insert a legal way to do what they wanted to do. Still doing the same thing, but just doing it from a legal perspective.
That's
So
right.
I
But
think
but
we
it's
might have
similar
to
to
get-
all of what they're trying now with voter suppression and all those laws in so many states that are trying to keep people from voting. I mean, it's the same kind of thing.
Exactly.
You're right. We keep doing it.
Yeah.
I have read parts of a lot of these.
Have you read this one? Leroy?
I'm gonna sign off, but that doesn't mean the conversation.
Tell Neil we say thank him.
Oh, divine.
I thought I saw him back there somewhere.
Amazing book.
Neil can hear us.
I could. Thank you, Neil.
Okay, here.
All right.
Thank y'all.
Thank
Thank
you.
y'all, good to see you.
Goodbye.
Okay, God bless.
Hey, who's that up there? You
It ain't me.
completely.
Dr.
Dr. McCauley?
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right.
Thank y'all.
All right.
This is a really good one too. This is the one about the
Yeah.